So welcome back to one more show. I want to specifically discuss the One Nation, One Poll that was recently approved in the cabinet. Now, the question I have in my mind is this feasible for India?
Yes, the answer would be yes, but the yes would also require a number of preparatory steps, a kind of a definite time plan, and also to arrive at a political consensus. These three things are essential for rollout. As for the advantages, it has been recommended by previous law commissions, by parliamentary committees, even election commission has suggested number of times. Basically, one being to cut cost, because huge amount of money is spent in conducting election. In fact, they spend more than close to 50,000 crores. And if you add the money spent by political parties, whenever general elections are conducted, and a lot of money is also spent in parliamentary elections, state assembly elections, and of course panchayat elections. The most positive argument for rolling out this is that parties will save cost, government will save cost, public exchequer drainage will be stopped. If you have one time schedule in which you are accommodating all the three tiers of government, then what happens is political parties will also able to save money on these elections. One is the government and the other is the parties. Now that will also, the belief is, if parties require less amount of money for this election, so the political corruption will also come down, because parties are today, whether they are collecting donations or individual party leaders are collecting money, is essentially because of the huge cost of election involved. So accordingly, the influence of money power on election is directly proportionate to number of times elections are held, and then the attempts to influence the policy. I'm not saying that if this one nation, one poll comes, this will completely go away. But definitely the requirement of money for a simultaneous election and for an election which are taking place different times are going to be different. This is one. But what are the hurdles? You see, the whole problem is there are a number of hurdles. Now, before I go into the hurdles, I want to give a bird eye view of, what are the major decisions expected by the Prime Minister in his third term. Today, the cabinet has announced that in principle they have accepted the high-powered committee headed by former President Ramnath Kovind's report. Report had made several recommendations. We will come to that later. But among the important milestones to be crossed are: one, today a principal decision has been taken on One Nation, One Poll. But I think the bigger the game process will start, rather bigger decisions will come with the government fixing the timeline for the census. That census rollout is expected. I mean, the census work will start from, say, January of 2025 and will be completed by December of 2025. And this time they have decided to include caste as a category. With all that debate about, so there will be a column of caste.
So do we give credit to Rahul Gandhi for this?
No, I think there has been, the allies also like Janata Dal United have been saying that we need to look at it. And the caveat is that whatever data that will be generated by this will be purely used for tailoring the social welfare programs rather than for politics. But I do not know how that will be ensured. But this is one. So the first is the rollout of the census. That census is going to also take into account the caste, count. Now, after that, once the census is completed, the work will start on delimitation of Lok Sabha constituencies as well as assembly constituencies later, but first the parliamentary delimitation. When the delimitation exercise starts, and that means I expect 2026 beginning, we'll see the work on delimitation. It may take 6 months or 3 months or whatever. What is the delimitation is completed, the third thing, important thing is reserving 1/3 of seats for women. That is also a very important decision. Now, after that will be the rollout of One Nation, One Poll. So there are four things. Even though the government has announced the first thing as in principle acceptance of the Ramnath Kovind committee report and efforts to seek more consensus, more public participation and receiving ideas from the public, feedback from the public, including political parties. But the whole work will start with census. Now,
Mhm.
the question is, two things are there, sir. One thing is clear, as per Ramnath Kovind Committee report, the simultaneous polls should start from a Lok Sabha elections.
Mhm.
Now that we have just had a Lok Sabha elections, the next Lok Sabha elections is only due in 2029. So one can reasonably assume, if this is the plan, parliamentary elections. Now, before that, you are going to have a number of assembly elections. 2025, the beginning, February, you are going to have elections to the Delhi Assembly. In November, you will have elections to Bihar Assembly. 2026, you are going to have assembly elections in Assam, West Bengal, Tamil Nadu, Kerala. I don't know if delimitation be completed before that. Can women reservation become an aspect of these assembly elections in 2026? They're difficult because that will be in May, and delimitation exercise would need time. And that itself is again a very contentious issue, because southern states are saying that since their population growth has not been to the extent of what has happened in the northern states, they don't want to be put at a disadvantage when it comes to numbers in parliament. So some formula, I am told, will be evolved, where I think seats will go up for everybody by say 10% or 20% or 25% or whatever. There is one formula being worked out, so nobody is going to be at a disadvantage. The principal decision that you have seen has got other political messaging in this, because after all, before the cabinet decision formally came, you had news reports in several papers quoting government sources as saying that the government is going to implement one nation, one poll, which is one of the important promises made in the BJP manifesto for 2024. Then after that, Home Minister himself made a statement. Yes, we are going to it. At the third day, the cabinet decision comes, which means the message that they wanted to send was, as Modi government completed 100 days in office, that is 3.0, the message was, let nobody have any doubt that the Prime Minister Modi is going full steam in his third term, and the lack of numbers for the BJP in parliament on its own is not going to be a hindrance or going to be a hurdle for major decisions. It's going to be business as usual. That is the biggest message that the Prime Minister has chosen to give on completion of 100 days. There is a very clear plan why the announcement has come now, though there are other things which I mentioned.
I have a quick question here. CM Stalin, right, says this is a step against federalism. Now, they will also argue that why don't we do it from 2027, because that's when Tamil Nadu elections are going in instead of 2029, right? So, how will the Modi government handle this argument?
Yes, sir. Major problem is, you see, Ramnath Kovind Committee suggested or recommended that you do it from the parliamentary elections and see that the assemblies which have in elections curtail the terms of the assembly and synchronize it with Lok Sabha elections. That means if you want to do it in 2029, so elections that have happened previously, whether it is Delhi Assembly and Delhi and Bihar in 2025, or Assam, West Bengal, Tamil Nadu, Kerala in 2026, and when they come to 2029, some would have done 3 years, some would have done 4 years, and there will be some with a few months. Your Rajasthan, Chhattisgarh, Madhya Pradesh, they would have done elections in December of 2025. So what will happen? That means when Kovind's committee's recommendation is, let the house be there for 3 years. Now this is something where this is going to face a big hurdle, because no state assembly is going to accept a proposition that their term will be curtailed. See, if the proposal is extension,
then they're happy.
so you take 1 year so that the house term will be extended to coincide. That may not face hurdle. That is one. And also, sir, Ramnath Kovind panel also mentioned what are the legal requirements where the constitution may have to be amended. Because basically what they have proposed is a two-phase simultaneous poll to begin with. The first one is ensuring that the state assembly elections coincide with Lok Sabha elections. That is stage one. Stage two is within 100 days of the parliamentary elections, ensure local self bodies, election to local civil bodies are completed. Which means first stage is parliamentary elections and state assembly, then state assembly and the local bodies, right from municipal corporation to municipality down to Jilla Parishad, Gram Panchayat, so on. So this is the kind of constitutional requirement definitely be needed when it comes to deciding the term of the house and or deciding on curtailment of the term or extension of certain houses, whichever the case is going to be. That is two. The third is, sir, Ramnath panel has also proposed there is going to be one vote. The electoral card or the every voter will have a card that will enable him to, that same vote will be, the same electoral rolls will be the basis for election from Gram Panchayat up to Parliament. So that will need a lot of coordination. And currently, local self-government elections are handled by the State Election Department. They are not under Election Commission of India. Election Commission conducts only elections to Lok Sabha, Rajya Sabha and state assemblies, not to the local bodies. Now here the proposal is the Election Commission will come into that. Now this is one aspect for which the electoral rolls will have to be revised, will have to be updated and see that there is a commonality. These are the three aspects I mentioned, the three which would require law, the different aspects of law. Now the fourth aspect of law or which would require is, it's not aspect of law, rather it's a kind of logistics where the Election Commission will have to gear up in terms of EVMs, VVPAT machines to conduct simultaneous elections. That which means they have to start doing their work now, they have to place orders, get those EVMs ready in the next 3-4 years. And also they have to get VVPAT machines because now the clamor will be that as many number of booths will have to use VVPAT machines. Other question is, sir, what about security? Because even now, like Maharashtra and Haryana elections, right now you are going to have Jammu Kashmir and Haryana. Later you are going to have Maharashtra and Jharkhand by this year end. The question, people are already saying that Home Ministry is not able to conduct some of these elections together because deployment of security forces. So the center will have to do some planning as to if a simultaneous elections were to be held, what is the police force strength that they need to raise afresh. They have to create new battalions of Central Paramilitary Forces so that they have enough forces. Already the multi-phase poll, one of the arguments is multi-phase poll is necessitated by considerations of security, movement of troops. So all these things are there. By announcing this decision, I think the government has set in motion all these aspects. That means the Election Commission has to gear up accordingly. Security on the Home Ministry has also to look at how to create the necessary force, security police force of the paramilitary unit so that they can take up the work in terms of number, in terms of magnitude. So these are different things which require on the logistics side, legal side, and above all, sir, the government has been repeatedly saying that they will engage in a dialogue. They want to talk to political parties. Political parties were asked to present their views before the Ramnath Kovind panel. 47 parties, gave their points. Of those 47 parties, 32 political parties welcomed it, but 15 were opposed. And today, sir, some parties which opposed earlier are now changing their mind. A good example would be Mayawati. Mayawati had opposed simultaneous polls, but today she feels it's a good idea, it should be implemented.
But I have a very specific question here. Some think this is against regional parties. What do you think?
Sir, I'll tell you one thing. The proposal per se may not be an issue for both the regional parties because of the advantages which we discussed. But I think where the problem is, there is a lurking suspicion. Since it has been brought by the BJP government and under the Prime Minister Modi's leadership, probably they think this is going to benefit them. That is why they are bringing it. So the opposition parties tend to think that there is some catch in this, that this will help them because they already have a powerful personality of Prime Minister, and gradually this parliament election will begin to resemble a presidential election, and that they may be at a disadvantage because they do not have such a charismatic personality to lead their parties or seat votes. So regional parties will definitely oppose it, saying that the choices will get mixed up. But we have seen elections in Odisha and Andhra Pradesh where people vote both for state assembly as well as centre. Of course, this time Odisha BJP benefited both in the assembly elections as well as in parliamentary election. Previously, we have seen the voters of Odisha making a very clear distinction between whom they are voting for to head the state government and whom they are voting for at the centre.
Mhm.
The average voter in Odisha has definitely made a distinction. It is his or her choice. So therefore, sir, regional parties they have the suspicion that whether this has something. I mean, this is going to benefit BJP.
Can we expect that someday that voting will become mandatory in India? Maybe it will be linked to the Aadhaar card. Or can you also expect things like one nation, one poll, it's all done in one day?
Sir, I do not think this mandatory voting, it was earlier because of, not so impressive polling percentages particularly in big cities and compared to, rural areas where the people are more enthusiastic to participate. The city folks have been lazy to come out because they see it's a holiday, and there has been a consistent campaign by the election commission to get more people to come out and vote. In fact, they have been running a campaign, and just before election they do it in a very big way. But still, sir, mandatory voting, political parties have had different views on this. At one time, Lal Krishna Advani ji, BJP senior most leader, had even thought of compulsory voting. But then the idea did not pick up speed because there was opposition on the ground that if you make it mandatory, somewhere along this has a coercive impact on the voters. That if you bring up law which says they have to compulsorily vote, and that means it will bring a pressure on them. So some parties felt that the voter must have a choice to vote or not to vote. So I do not think compulsory voting can become can be a fallout of this, though it's a separate subject which has been debated and which could again provoke a fresh debate. Because the fear would be if he does not come to vote, he would be penalized. And the question is, in a democracy, can you penalize a voter just because he has not voted?
To keep it consistent with the security apparatus, can we then add it to the Aadhaar program or the framework?
Sir, already the Election Commission insisted on linking your Aadhaar card with voter's card. And they have been encouraging that, and which was not to the liking of many opposition parties. Because if you bring in biometrics to this, they can eliminate a lot of fake voters. Because many voters have multiple electoral cards, and if it's a multi-phase election, they can vote here and then vote again. Of course, there is a ink mark. So, that is why Election Commission suggested linking Aadhaar code with the election card. Because once the electoral card, election card, voter card is linked with Aadhaar, there cannot be duplication. And this was made a voluntary exercise. The Election Commission made it, and many people using their mobile, they had to only just dial a number, put their Aadhaar number to the election card, and it would get linked. Many have linked. That's not a big issue. Doesn't need for you to even go to any office. But just the purity of election, it is necessary. But again, there is opposition from opposition parties saying that no, this will be another coercive way of forcing people to vote. And their allegation is BJP has a secret agenda, and they have been making you and cry whenever this talk of this compulsory voting has come.
Okay, sir. With that, we'll end this show, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.